sometimes all the mental tricks that Muslim people must do in order to avoid just intuitive and logical things, and to ignore them, or not to think, or to be able not to think properly, or not read it properly in order to avoid this simple intuitive truths, is also a lot of pressure. It's not easy to be a Muslim. You would have to just cancel logic in certain places of your brain, and it's a lot of effort sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to circle back to the question of Muslim identity and, the fact that fundamentalist Muslims especially find this kind of thing to be more of an issue than, say, a more traditional Christian family, or I guess a Jewish community, where belief might be very secondary to community. Yeah, I mean, the question of Muslim identity is I think, a very interesting one that we should circle back to, because it's not a self-evident fact that just because you have doubts in, the factual claims of the religious tradition that you're in, that should automatically mean that you are out of the community of this tradition, right? But fundamentalist Muslims have kind of made it that way, so that if you want to maintain this kind of tribal identity, then you have to also hold to certain confessions, to certain unaltered beliefs about the universe, even if they don't make sense.
Yeah, I think the hardest point is that leaving Islam comes with really, really strong consequences. It means in certain communities it's death, in others it's prison, harassment, social cancellation, and it's like in my country, it's not only one would risk prison or losing jobs or so, it would also be considered a social suicide. And with this treatment for ex-Muslims, it's hard to stay in the community and be part of it or so. I think maybe other communities are more tolerant with ex-Christian or ex-Jewish or so. I mean, Jewish is being an ethnicity. It's mostly actually an ethnicity, not a religion anymore. And there is a lot of atheist Jews. Yeah, so.
Sure. And I mean, religious categories are very fluid things that, they have, like ethnicity and religion are very interwoven things in any case. It's a little easier to conceive of them as things that are completely separate when you are in an environment that is predominantly Muslim, and because everybody here believes this set of propositions, they're part of a religious community. And once you stop believing that, then you're out of this religious community. And it's kind of a simple calculus there. But when you come to Europe, for example, where Muslims are a minority, you see that there is an ethnicized kind of nature that comes to this to those community, where it stops becoming only about accepting a certain set of propositions, but it also has an ethnic element to it. And by the way, the fact that Jewish communities place so much more value on community and tradition than on belief makes it so that those people have a lot more intellectual freedom to explore different questions about the universe, and that's probably the reason why Jews are overrepresented in Nobel Prize winners and academic high achievers. Right, because they don't have the same restrictions that Christians for a long time have had, that Muslims to this day in so many communities still have.
I'm not really sure that the teachers of Judaism are the reason, or the main reasons why the Jews.
I'm not saying the teachings of Judaism in themselves, or the traditions, or the beliefs themselves. I'm saying it's the specific kind of attitude towards community being more important than belief. And a Jewish community can still continue to exist and somebody can still remain a part of it and not lose anything from that dimension by questioning, for example, the existence of God or anything like that. So a Jew has a lot more intellectual freedom to explore their own mind and the universe without fear of repercussion, and still have a community that supports them. That's what I mean.
Yeah, that might be a factor why they are excelling academically. I think just to tie Islam to an ethnicity, statically, I'm not sure if that would be correct. I mean, there are Arabs, people who speak Arabic, but I'm not sure, like some Egyptians say, we are Egyptians, we're not Arabs. And like I've heard of some genetic tests and these genetic tests could really distinguish people who live in Egypt from the people who live in Saudi Arabia and from people who live in Algeria. And we are all Arabs because we speak Arabic. But can we say that Arabic is an ethnicity? I'm not really sure, being an Arabic. And if we cannot say that for Arabic, then
I would make the argument that it is an ethnicity, but also you can have multiple ethnicities within the same kind of cultural space. I mean, look, ethnicity is the way I view them. They're social constructs that are constantly being created and evolving. And, it's not something that, has kind of an independent existence outside of the sociological analysis that we might make, or the social categorizations that we have historically placed people in, right? So,
okay, that might be correct. And I mean, what I want to say is that because so many people looks like me or looks like you are Muslims, that does not mean that Islam is part of our genetic combination or a part of our ethnicity or part of our... That's what I want to say, that Islam is an ideology. It could change. There are people, it's not written in our DNA. And if there is something bad in Islam, that could be eliminated also and could be improved. Islam itself, some people refuse to be, are born to be, are being forced or brainwashed to be Muslims from their parents, and then grow up and choose not to be Muslims. That's totally okay. It's only an ideology. It's not an ethnicity. It's not part of my ethnicity.
Our lives are thus far completely divorced from the religious traditions and all of that, right? As former Muslims who, as I sometimes like to say, ex-Muslims don't necessarily freely leave the religion. It's more like they're kicked out of it because there is a certain orthodoxy about what you're supposed to believe in a Muslim community, and so if you're not able to engage with the community in a meaningful way anymore, so you just leave. Given the fact that, of course, I do not have any Islamic practices or community practices or weddings or funerals or music or anything like that, there's no basis for me to identify as a Muslim. I would hope, though, that for future generations and for people maybe kind of growing up now, that the way that they live their lives wouldn't be immensely changed by their kind of realization that maybe they don't believe in God, for example, right? That they still celebrate the same holidays and so on. And I think if the Muslim world is going to progress, there has to be a sort of dilution of the dogmatic nature of the religion, rather than, an outright rejection of the kind of heritage that comes with it.
Yeah. I agree. It should be. I totally agree that Islam is reformable, that we could change it step for step by step, a little bit by a little bit. However, I just look around and I see no one is fit to do the job. no one is doing the job. It's just like no one, even those who, consider themselves moderate or say that they are moderate, they are to a big part extremist